What kind of home could leave even America's wealthiest families standing in stunned silence? In an era when fortunes were measured in railroads, banks, and shipping empires, one mansion rose above them all, not because it was the largest, but because it dared to redefine what luxury itself could mean. On the cliffs of Newport, Rhode Island, where the Atlantic Ocean endlessly crashes against the shore, there stands a palace built not merely to shelter a family, but to make a statement that would echo through American history. Every polished surface, every towering column, and every gleaming block of marble tells the story of extraordinary ambition, breathtaking wealth, and a society determined to prove that America could rival the grandest courts of Europe. This is the story of Marble House, the mansion that left America's richest families speechless. To understand why Marble House became such an unforgettable symbol of luxury, we must first travel back to the final decades of the 19th century, a period historians now call the Gilded Age. Stretching from the years after the American Civil War into the early 20th century, this was a time when industry expanded at astonishing speed. Railroads connected distant cities, steel mills reshaped skylines, oil fields created fortunes almost overnight, and factories transformed the nation's economy. Families whose names would become legendary, including the Vanderbilts, Astors, Carnegies, and Morgans, accumulated levels of wealth that previous generations could scarcely imagine. Among these powerful families, none represented the new American elite more dramatically than the Vanderbilt dynasty. Their enormous fortune had begun with Cornelius Vanderbilt, often called the Commodore, who built a transportation empire through steamships before dominating the railroad industry. By the time of his death in 1877, his wealth had become one of the greatest fortunes in American history. His descendants inherited not only immense riches, but also an intense desire to secure their place among the highest levels of society. One of those descendants was William Kissam Vanderbilt. Born in 1849, he inherited a vast fortune that allowed him to live a life beyond the dreams of most Americans. Yet despite unimaginable wealth, acceptance into New York's exclusive social circles was far from guaranteed. Money alone did not command respect among the old elite. Status had to be displayed, demonstrated, and constantly reinforced. Standing beside William was his remarkable wife, Alva Vanderbilt. Born in Alabama in 1853, Alva possessed extraordinary intelligence, confidence, and determination. She understood that architecture could become a language of power. To her, a magnificent residence was not simply a comfortable home. It was a declaration that the Vanderbilt family belonged among the world's greatest aristocratic families. During the 1880s, Newport, Rhode Island, had become America's summer capital of wealth. Each season, the nation's richest families escaped the heat of New York City and gathered along Bellevue Avenue, where increasingly extravagant summer cottages rose one after another. The word cottage was almost humorous. These residences resembled European palaces far more than ordinary homes. Competition quickly became fierce. Every new mansion attempted to surpass the last through larger ballrooms, finer artwork, imported materials, and increasingly elaborate gardens. Wealth was measured not only by bank accounts, but by architecture itself. Yet Alva Vanderbilt believed something extraordinary was still missing. She envisioned a mansion unlike anything America had ever seen. Rather than copying the wooden summer homes surrounding Newport, she dreamed of constructing a palace inspired by French classical architecture, built almost entirely of marble. At a time when stone itself represented permanence and prestige, covering an entire mansion in marble would be a breathtaking display of financial confidence. However, turning such a dream into reality required finding one of the greatest architects in America. That search led to Richard Morris Hunt, one of the country's most celebrated architects. Having studied at the prestigious École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, Hunt possessed a deep understanding of European palaces, Renaissance design, and classical architecture. His work combined technical mastery with artistic elegance, making him the perfect choice for an ambitious project unlike any other. When Alva shared her vision, Hunt immediately understood that this would not simply be another luxurious residence. Marble House would become a cultural statement, a building intended to demonstrate that American wealth had reached a level equal to the royal families of Europe. Planning began during the mid-1880s. Every detail demanded careful consideration. The mansion would overlook the Atlantic Ocean, allowing arriving guests to witness its imposing white marble exterior rising against the blue horizon. Its symmetry would reflect the influence of French palaces, while its richly decorated interiors would celebrate classical art, mythology, and craftsmanship. Construction officially began in 1888. From the very beginning, the project astonished observers. Instead of relying primarily on brick or wood, enormous quantities of high-quality marble were ordered for both the exterior and interior. More than 500,000 cubic feet of marble would eventually be used throughout the mansion. The gleaming white stone transformed the building into something rarely seen in the United States. Transporting such vast quantities of marble presented enormous logistical challenges. Massive stone blocks traveled by rail and ship before skilled craftsmen carefully shaped each piece. Sculptors carved decorative details by hand. Stone masons assembled columns with extraordinary precision. Every staircase, fireplace, wall panel, and ornamental feature demanded weeks or even months of painstaking labor. The costs climbed rapidly. While many wealthy Americans already spent impressive sums constructing elegant homes, Marble House entered an entirely different category. Contemporary reports estimated the mansion itself cost around $11 million to complete, an unimaginable amount for its time. Roughly $7 million of that total represented the marble alone. Adjusted for modern values, the investment would equal hundreds of millions of dollars today. But for Alva Vanderbilt, expense was never the primary concern. Perfection was. Every room had to surpass expectations. Every visitor had to remember the experience. Every architectural detail had to reinforce the Vanderbilt family's place at the summit of American society. As construction continued, teams of artists, decorators, metalworkers, woodcarvers, and painters arrived from both America and Europe. Many possessed specialized skills rarely found outside royal commissions. They crafted elaborate ceilings inspired by Renaissance masterpieces, designed intricate bronze decorations, and produced furniture worthy of the grand salons of Paris. The mansion slowly transformed from a construction site into a work of art. Yet even before Marble House officially opened, rumors spread throughout Newport. Guests arriving for the summer season whispered about the astonishing palace taking shape behind its walls. Some believed no private family could possibly require such extravagance. Others admired the boldness of the project, recognizing that they were witnessing a new chapter in American architecture. Curiosity grew stronger with every passing month. No one could quite imagine what waited beyond those marble walls. And when the doors finally opened, visitors would discover that the breathtaking exterior was only the beginning. Hidden inside was a sequence of rooms so lavish, so meticulously designed, and so dazzling in their craftsmanship that they would forever change how America's richest families measured luxury itself. When Marble House finally opened its magnificent doors in 1892, Newport's elite arrived with expectations that were already impossibly high. For months they had heard whispers about endless marble, European craftsmen, and a mansion unlike anything America had ever seen. Yet the moment they crossed the entrance, even the most seasoned millionaires realized the rumors had understated the truth. Marble House was not simply another extravagant summer residence. It was a carefully orchestrated masterpiece designed to overwhelm every visitor from the very first step. The experience began before guests even entered the main rooms. Massive bronze doors welcomed them into an entrance hall where polished marble reflected the soft glow of chandeliers suspended high above. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, bouncing across white stone surfaces and filling the interior with an almost ethereal brightness. Every proportion had been calculated by Richard Morris Hunt to create a feeling of grandeur without chaos. Visitors instinctively slowed their pace, taking in details that seemed endless. Yet the entrance hall was merely an introduction. As guests moved deeper into the mansion, they encountered one of its most remarkable architectural features, the grand staircase. Inspired by the ceremonial stairways of Europe's royal palaces, it rose gracefully beneath an elaborately decorated ceiling. Marble balustrades curved elegantly upward, while finely crafted bronze details added warmth to the cool white stone. Looking upward, visitors found themselves surrounded by sculpted ornamentation, gilded accents, and classical motifs that celebrated ancient mythology and Renaissance artistry. The staircase served a purpose beyond connecting floors. It created anticipation. Every step revealed another breathtaking perspective, another carefully framed view, another reminder that Marble House had been designed as a theatrical experience. Alva Vanderbilt understood something many homeowners overlooked. Luxury was not merely about expensive materials. It was about creating emotion. Every room inside Marble House was meant to inspire amazement. That philosophy became even more apparent in the mansion's grand salon. Drawing inspiration from the famous Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles, this magnificent room displayed soaring ceilings richly decorated with gold leaf, intricate carvings, and painted panels. Massive mirrors reflected crystal chandeliers, multiplying both the light and the apparent size of the room. Elegant furniture, crafted in the French style, rested upon richly woven carpets imported from Europe, while priceless decorative objects occupied carefully chosen positions throughout the space. Guests did not simply admire the room. They paused. Many reportedly stood in silence, uncertain where to direct their attention first. Everywhere they looked, another extraordinary detail competed for their admiration. However, one room inside Marble House communicated power more clearly than any other. The dining room. Here, lavish dinners became performances of wealth and refinement. The walls displayed richly colored marble framed by ornate gilded moldings. Enormous mirrors expanded the visual space while reflecting candlelight across polished surfaces. A monumental fireplace dominated one end of the room, crowned with intricate sculptures inspired by classical Europe. Long dining tables were set with fine porcelain, sparkling crystal glasses, polished silver, and carefully arranged floral displays. Every course served during these dinners reflected the Vanderbilt family's desire to match or surpass the finest aristocratic households in Europe. Imported wines accompanied elaborate meals prepared by highly trained chefs, while an army of servants worked almost invisibly to ensure every guest experienced flawless service. Behind this effortless elegance stood countless workers whose lives remained largely unseen. Marble House required dozens of servants to operate smoothly throughout each summer season. Cooks, butlers, maids, gardeners, chauffeurs, laundresses, footmen, and housekeepers followed carefully organized routines beginning before sunrise and often ending long after midnight. Separate corridors, hidden staircases, and discreet service areas allowed staff to move throughout the mansion without interrupting the refined atmosphere enjoyed by the Vanderbilt family and their distinguished guests. Their work transformed Marble House into a perfectly functioning machine of luxury. Every curtain opened at precisely the right time. Every fireplace was prepared before guests arrived. Every polished marble surface gleamed without visible effort. While visitors admired elegance, an invisible workforce sustained it. Yet Marble House represented more than beautiful architecture and impeccable service. It showcased the latest technology available during the late 19th century. Electric lighting, still considered a remarkable innovation by many Americans, illuminated important rooms with a brilliance impossible only a generation earlier. Modern plumbing systems improved comfort and sanitation. Sophisticated heating methods helped regulate indoor temperatures during cooler weather. Communication systems enabled servants to respond quickly to the family's needs. These conveniences reflected the rapid technological transformation occurring throughout America during the Gilded Age. The mansion demonstrated that true luxury combined timeless artistry with cutting-edge innovation. Outside, equally impressive landscapes surrounded the residence. Carefully planned gardens provided elegant pathways leading toward dramatic views of the Atlantic Ocean. Classical sculptures decorated terraces where guests could enjoy cool ocean breezes during warm summer evenings. Every tree, hedge, and flower bed had been positioned to complement the mansion's architecture rather than compete with it. Nature itself became part of Marble House's design. As waves crashed rhythmically against Newport's rocky shoreline, the mansion appeared almost timeless, as though it had stood for centuries rather than only recently emerging from an ambitious construction project. But perhaps Marble House's greatest influence extended beyond its walls. Its completion transformed Newport's social competition. America's wealthiest families suddenly found themselves measuring their own homes against an entirely new standard. Mansions that had once seemed unimaginably luxurious now appeared comparatively modest. Architects received increasingly ambitious commissions. European antiques became even more desirable. Imported marble, gilded interiors, elaborate ballrooms, and monumental staircases rapidly gained popularity among those determined to compete with the Vanderbilt example. The so-called cottages of Newport became progressively larger, more elaborate, and vastly more expensive. Marble House had raised the bar. Yet for Alva Vanderbilt, architecture alone was never the ultimate objective. She wanted influence. She wanted recognition. She wanted unquestioned acceptance into America's highest social circles. To achieve that goal, she hosted spectacular entertainments where politicians, financiers, diplomats, artists, and members of elite society gathered beneath Marble House's magnificent ceilings. Invitations became highly coveted. Receiving one signaled that an individual had entered the upper ranks of American society. Lavish receptions featured orchestras performing elegant music, while guests dressed in the latest Paris fashions filled the salons with conversation. Crystal chandeliers illuminated gowns adorned with jewels worth fortunes. Distinguished gentlemen discussed business empires, international politics, and investment opportunities while moving through rooms that themselves symbolized unprecedented prosperity. For one glittering evening after another, Marble House became the stage upon which America's new aristocracy presented itself to the world. Yet beneath the elegance lay a more complicated reality. The enormous fortunes that funded these extraordinary lifestyles existed alongside growing economic inequality across the United States. Factory workers labored long hours under difficult conditions. Immigrant families crowded into rapidly expanding cities seeking opportunity. Farmers struggled with changing markets. Labor disputes erupted in various industries during the very years these magnificent mansions were rising. Marble House therefore reflected both the extraordinary achievements and the profound contrasts of the Gilded Age. It symbolized limitless ambition, remarkable innovation, exceptional craftsmanship, but also the immense gap separating America's richest families from ordinary citizens. Still, the mansion's most dramatic chapter had not yet arrived. Within only a few years, events inside the Vanderbilt family would take an unexpected turn. A marriage once celebrated as one of America's greatest social unions would begin to unravel, setting Marble House on a completely different path than anyone could have imagined. The palace, built to symbolize everlasting prestige, was about to witness a transformation that would shape its future for generations to come. Few of the elegant guests who admired Marble House during the dazzling summer seasons of the 1890s could have imagined that the mansion's future would be shaped not by another lavish celebration, but by a deeply personal turning point in the lives of the family who built it. The palace that had become a symbol of the Vanderbilt name was about to enter a new chapter, one that would prove even the grandest homes could not protect their owners from the changing tides of life. By the mid-1890s, the marriage between William Kissam Vanderbilt and Alva Vanderbilt had begun to deteriorate. Years of personal differences gradually widened into an irreparable divide. In 1895, the couple divorced, a rare and highly controversial event among America's elite at the time. Newspapers followed the story closely, while society whispered about the future of one of the country's most famous families. As part of the divorce settlement, William gave Marble House to Alva. What had originally been presented as an extravagant birthday gift now became entirely her own. Far from retreating from public life, Alva embraced her independence with remarkable determination. She continued to entertain influential guests within the mansion's magnificent rooms, proving that Marble House remained one of Newport's greatest landmarks regardless of changing family circumstances. Yet Alva's ambitions soon expanded beyond high society. In the years that followed, she became increasingly involved in the growing movement for women's rights. At a time when women across the United States were demanding greater political representation, education, and the right to vote, Alva used both her influence and her wealth to support the cause. Marble House, once built to display extraordinary luxury, gradually became a gathering place where important conversations about social change could take place. One of the mansion's most distinctive additions reflected this new direction. In 1913, Alva commissioned a beautiful Chinese tea house on the estate overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. Inspired by traditional Chinese architecture, the elegant structure featured colorful decorative details, graceful rooflines, and spectacular ocean views. While it provided a peaceful retreat for afternoon gatherings, it also became the setting for meetings supporting the women's suffrage movement. The contrast was remarkable. A mansion originally constructed to symbolize wealth and status had evolved into a place connected with one of the most significant social movements in American history. Marble House was no longer simply a palace of luxury. It had become part of a larger national story. Meanwhile, America itself was changing rapidly. The 20th century introduced automobiles, airplanes, radio broadcasts, and new industries that reshaped everyday life. The First World War altered global politics, while changing economic conditions gradually transformed the lifestyles of even the nation's wealthiest families. The era of maintaining enormous summer estates with dozens of servants slowly began to fade. By the 1920s and 1930s, many families found these magnificent properties increasingly expensive to operate. Large staffs became difficult to maintain, taxes increased, and younger generations often preferred more practical homes. Across Newport, several Gilded Age mansions were sold, altered, or demolished as priorities shifted. Fortunately, Marble House escaped that fate. Recognizing its extraordinary architectural and historical significance, preservationists worked to ensure the mansion would survive for future generations. Their efforts reflected a growing appreciation that these grand estates represented more than private homes. They were irreplaceable works of American art, craftsmanship, and cultural history. In 1963, Marble House was designated a National Historic Landmark, acknowledging its exceptional importance to the history of the United States. By then, visitors no longer viewed the mansion simply as a symbol of Vanderbilt wealth. Instead, it had become a window into the remarkable world of the Gilded Age, a period when ambition, industry, and unprecedented fortunes transformed the nation. Today, Marble House is carefully preserved by the Preservation Society of Newport County, the organization responsible for protecting many of Newport's most famous historic estates. Skilled conservators continually restore delicate ceilings, polished marble surfaces, priceless furnishings, decorative artwork, and architectural details so that modern visitors can experience the mansion much as guests did more than a century ago. Walking through Marble House today feels like stepping into another era. The grand staircase still rises with quiet elegance. The dazzling grand salon still reflects light across its gilded decorations. The dining room still evokes memories of elaborate banquets attended by America's financial elite. Outside, the Atlantic Ocean continues its endless rhythm, just as it did when the first Vanderbilt guests admired the same breathtaking view in the summer of 1892. Yet perhaps the mansion's greatest achievement lies not in its marble, its gold decorations, or even its extraordinary cost. Its true legacy is the story it preserves. Marble House tells the story of a nation discovering immense industrial power. It tells of architects whose creativity rivaled Europe's greatest designers. It tells of craftsmen whose skill transformed raw stone into timeless beauty. It tells of families driven by ambition, competition, and the desire to leave behind something unforgettable. It also reminds us that wealth alone cannot stop time. The glamorous parties eventually ended. The famous guests disappeared into history. The generations that once filled these magnificent rooms passed away. But the mansion remained. Every polished column, carved fireplace, painted ceiling, and marble hallway continues to speak across generations, inviting millions of visitors to imagine a world where luxury reached astonishing heights. Standing before Marble House today, it becomes clear why visitors more than a century ago struggled to find words. They were witnessing far more than an expensive residence. They were witnessing an idea, an attempt to prove that America, still a relatively young nation, could create architectural masterpieces equal to the grand palaces of Europe. More than 130 years after its completion, Marble House continues to inspire architects, historians, designers, filmmakers, and travelers from around the world. It appears in documentaries, history books, and educational programs not merely because of its size or beauty, but because it perfectly captures the spirit of an extraordinary age. The Gilded Age has long since passed into history, but Marble House remains one of its brightest surviving symbols. Its marble walls still gleam beneath the Newport sun. Its halls still echo with stories of ambition and elegance. And every visitor who steps through its doors becomes part of the remarkable journey that began in 1888, reached breathtaking completion in 1892, and continues to captivate the world today. Marble House was built to impress the richest families in America. More than a century later, it is still accomplishing that mission, only now it leaves the entire world speechless.